Jermall Charlo says he wants Canelo Alvarez, Gennady Golovkin, and Daniel Jacobs, but he's sick of calling them out. Let's talk about that in this video and what he needs to do. And also, man, a little bit of hypocrisy coming out of his mouth. I can't help it. I got to say it. There is a guy named Demetrius Andrade. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel, subscribers. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you can be notified when we release more videos. Also, I want to say a special thank you to my Patreons and the live stream community for holding down the channel. Please make sure that you attend the OG Boxing Talk live stream Sunday mornings, 8 a.m. Central Standard Time, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for myself, my co-host Blood Boxing, Curtis Anderson, KQKC Boxing, and my newest co-host Trap House Boxing. You guys are gonna enjoy that show a lot. Make sure you come and show up. All right, Jermall Charlo. It's my favorite guy at 160 pounds out of Houston, Texas, the former IBF 154-pound champion, the current WBC 160-pound champion, and a guy that is truly, truly stuck between a rock and a hard place. Canelo, he has a fight coming up. First of all, he's got a fight coming up against Dennis Hogan this December, and I do believe this will be it might be his second title defense of the WBC belt that he received when Canelo Alvarez was given what I believe to be the dubious distinction of the WBC franchise championship, and Jermall Charlo was elevated to the WBC championship championship title. Now, the reason I say it's his second title defense is because he didn't actually win it in a ring. He got it before the WBC title before the Brandon Adams fight. And so his first fight as the middleweight champion was a title defense. And it wasn't a vacant title that he won. It was the first time he fought as a champion, or the first time he walked into the ring as a champion, was a title defense. You get what I mean? He didn't win the vacant belt. He was given it. And then his first fight was Brandon Adams. Very anticlimactic way to win a belt. So now that he's the WBC champion, he of course wants the big money fight. He wants the fights that everybody else would like to see. Not everybody else, but I certainly would like to see in the middleweight division. So he says that he wants to fight Canelo. He wants to fight Gennady Golovkin, and he wants to fight Daniel Jacobs. But, there's only so much stuff that he can do to try to make these fights happen. It's abundantly clear that Canelo Alvarez doesn't want to fight him. It's abundantly clear that Gennady Golovkin doesn't want to fight him. And Daniel Jacobs, I do believe, also went up to 168 pounds. And I haven't heard too much about Daniel Jacobs wanting to fight him. So the problem for Jermall Charlo is that he has, his last 4 fights, do not inspire people to demand a fight between he and Canelo Alvarez or Gennady Golovkin. Fights against Sebastian Heelan, Centino, Korobov, and Adams, and now Dennis Hogan. Those aren't names that really resonate with even hardcore boxing fans. Got to go to BoxRec to find out who those guys are. The closest one not to being somebody you got to look up is probably Brandon Adams, who fought on The Contender. So, he might have had some notoriety about himself. Matt Korobov was the best of the fighters that he fought as a last minute replacement. Matt Korobov, that southpaw Russian counterpuncher, is a very difficult fight. But in his last 2 fights, Jermall Charlo has won by decision. And so he hasn't been able to get a knockout. He hasn't put up any, spectacular highlights out there to demand, for people to demand the fight, similar to what he did against was it Erickson Lubin? I think it was JRoc. No, it was his brother stiff-legged Erickson Lubin. Jermall Charlo did that to the current 154-pound unified champion, JRoc. So it's just very difficult for, on that basis to push and pressure any of these other guys to get into the ring with him. Now, the reason why I say, that there's a slight bit of hypocrisy here is because, he said he doesn't want to fight Demetrius Andrade. And Demetrius Andrade is the WBO champion. He and Demetrius Andrade are almost in the same position. I think it was earlier this week that Ronnie Shields, the trainer of Jermall Charlo, the trainer of Eris Landy Lara, and the trainer of Ife Agagbe, who, according to my sources, is very, very close to the guy that really runs the PBC, said that he didn't see anything in a fight between Jermall Charlo and Demetrius Andrade. Pretty much what he said is, what do you get out of that? What do you get out of that fight? And there's no need to talk about fights that aren't going to happen. So you have 3 fights at middleweight that aren't going to happen. Don't seem like they're going to happen because of the fighters mentioned, that being involved, that being Canelo Alvarez, Demetrius Andrade. Not Demetrius Andrade, Gennady Golovkin, Canelo Alvarez, and Daniel Jacobs. But you don't want to fight Demetrius Andrade because there's nothing to offer. Clearly, there's something there with the WBO belt. Now, I did hear, at least I saw a report where it was reported that I believe it was Bernard Hopkins, who's the promoter for Golden Boy Promotions, said that Canelo Alvarez would be willing to fight Jermall Charlo. Man, I hope that's true. This fight that's coming up this week, the best bet for Jermall Charlo's hopes is that Sergey Kovalev beats Canelo Alvarez. If Sergey Kovalev can beat Canelo Alvarez, that would take the 175-pound weight division off the table for. It would take that off the table for Canelo Alvarez and hopefully force Canelo Alvarez back down to 160 pounds. There are no real big, quote unquote, big money fights for Canelo Alvarez at 168 pounds. The David Benavidez fight, I think Canelo's on the record for saying that he's not going to fight any more Mexicans, which is mind boggling to me, how somebody could get away with saying something like that. But, hey, Canelo is, the quote unquote big money man in boxing, even though right now the money being generated from Canelo Alvarez really isn't coming from boxing fans. The money being generated by Canelo Alvarez is being paid for by DAZN. So, we'll see if Canelo Alvarez ever leaves DAZN, how that's going to pan out for him, having fought in a shoebox for several fights now. We'll see whether or not that translates if and when he pops up out of the zone. But there isn't really big fights at 168 pounds for Canelo Alvarez. Not David Benavidez, not Callum Smith, definitely not Caleb. I'm going to say definitely not Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant would be a difficult fight for him. But my point of it, the point is that it's going to be difficult for Canelo Alvarez really to do much at the 168 pound weight division, and hopefully he'll be able to move down there and fight Charlo at 160 pounds. I don't think Gennady Golovkin fighting him. I just don't see Gennady Golovkin doing that. Gennady Golovkin is on the hunt for Canelo Alvarez, and the way that he looked against what's his name? Sergey Deverenchenko. If he looking that way against Sergey Deverenchenko, I definitely don't think he wants that fight that he's going to want that fight with Jermall Charlo. Jermall Charlo has shown me that he has a chin. For some reason, people just make up that Jermall Charlo doesn't have a chin, as if you've ever seen him even buzzed. But Demetrius, if Gennady Golovkin has a hard time with Sergey Deverenchenko, I find it's like absolutely very difficult for me to believe that Gennady Golovkin is going to be able to beat him. So, the hope for Jermall Charlo really does, I believe, rest with him fighting the WBO champion, Demetrius Andrade. The other option, though, is that the 100, and maybe the end game is that these guys who are at 154 pounds, the PBC fighters from 154 pounds, move up to 160 pounds. That could very well be the case. Canelo Alvarez, I don't believe, is going to be long for 160. Eventually, he's going to lose that. Eventually, he's going to lose that WBA belt if he doesn't defend it. I don't see the WBA doing a super duper champion, right? And he already lost the IBF. Gennady Golovkin, the IBF already proved, will strip Gennady Golovkin if he doesn't defend. And the WBO, that's the WBO. But, anyway, I applaud Jermall Charlo for saying that he wants those fights. I would like to have him fight Demetrius Andrade to unify the belts. And then if he's going to stay there, wind up fighting guys like a rematch with JRoc, up at 160. He's got to make something happen. Anyway, just let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.